And we do have reaction already from state leaders, including our governor, Kay Ivey. She calls the decision a giant step forward for our country, mentions the Alabama Human Life Protection Act, which a lot of people right now wondering, okay, how is this going to affect Alabama now that this is now in the hands of states? She signed this law into effect 2019. It was blocked by U.S. District Judge just right before it was about to go into effect here. And that law bans nearly all abortions, including in cases of rape and incest. We're going to dive a little bit deeper with a legal expert in a few minutes to talk a little bit more about, again, what this could mean for Alabama.
This is no doubt a landmark decision today. We talk about Roe versus Wade, 1973, landmark. This is now Dobbs versus Jackson, a landmark decision in the U.S. Well, the Supreme Court's Dobbs versus Jackson ruling, though, is drawing reaction, as we've said, from all sides of the divisive abortion issue.
And joining us live right now, the Reverend James Henderson to talk about what this means for the pro-life movement that's fought for a long time to overturn Roe v. Wade. So let's start off by how are you celebrating a victory of this kind?
Well, we're mostly grateful for what the court did, and we, of course, are happy at the ruling, but our next step is to shift our focus from the sidewalk to support adoption better. So we're already organizing an effort where we can shift our resources and make adoption much quicker and hopefully at no cost.
Well, does this Supreme Court decision now eliminate in any way the need for what's become known as the pro-life movement?
No, we're a leader in the state of Alabama, and we know the minds of many across the country. And the pro-life effort is just that, at all phases of life. And if I may say so, I personally make a special effort to conduct services at the local state veterans home. And that's the other end of the life cycle. So there's plenty to do. And adoption, again, is our big priority now.
And so what do you have to say to those pro-choice advocates who fought equally hard to protect legalized abortion?
Well, I would say to anyone that we have to respect the court's decision. There's no time to gloat or to confront anybody. It's time to work together. Let's move on together and do the best we can to save more babies and stop the 6,000 a year who are being killed in Alabama's abortion clinics.
Father, quick question. Can you hear me?
Probably not. If you want to.
What does he say to the woman who's been raped and seeking an abortion? What's their answer to that?
The voice we're hearing right now, Will League, an attorney here in Huntsville, is going to be joining us a few minutes to talk a little bit more
about the legal side of this issue and what it means. He's asking what does the Reverend say to women who might be victims of rape or incest or those kind of circumstances, who will now also no longer, according to this ruling, have the right to access to a legal abortion?
Well, people need to understand that at conception, it's a human being, and to destroy it is frankly to commit murder. And so to any lady who may have been raped, you know, it's a terrible thing. But we've also talked to quite a few people who have been raped, and we're glad that they brought the baby to term, and we're proud to have the baby in their lives.
I'm going to break with my producer a little bit here, who's telling me we need to wrap this interview up, but I have a question for you. To the women out there who find themselves pregnant, who for whatever reason cannot or do not find the strength to carry this pregnancy full term, I have to ask you, how will now your fellow pro-life advocates, how are you going to support those women?
Well, the same way we already have. Here in Huntsville, we have always made an open offer at the abortion clinic that we'll pay the prenatal care for any lady who may have not have Medicaid or any other insurance. So it's nothing new to us. We'll continue to preach the gospel, we'll continue to pray, we'll continue to promote adoption, and we will help any way we can, and we're shifting gears, so to speak, to do that.
All right, we thank you so much, Reverend
Yes,
James
thank you.
Henderson, for joining
you.
us and giving us your perspective. Now, Congress Robert Adderhall also released a statement, the pro-life lawmaker, celebrating this decision.
Right.
He wants Congress to expand opportunities for adoption, which is we just heard it just a second ago from the Reverend. Now, let's take a live look over at the U.S. Supreme Court building. You can see protests are
Look at those folks
growing.
protesting there in a big way. Protest actually growing there over this landmark ruling. This is made up, as you look at that group there, of both pro-life and pro-choice advocates. And we do know the Supreme Court coming under fire already for this decision, especially from those who support Roe versus Wade. So Lisa Henback with the Alabama Democratic Executive Committee also here with us today.
Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. And this is someone who is pro-choice that we're
Yep.
talking to. So we want to talk about what this ruling means for women. What was your reaction when you heard this ruling come through?
Yes, honestly, it was shocking, but not surprising, as we know, and I'm sure you've talked about on here, the leak that occurred a couple of weeks ago. We saw this coming, but people who have been involved in this for a while, who've been paying attention, have been seeing this coming for years. So again, it was a shocking thing, but not surprising.
Well, with Roe versus Wade now overturned, what does that now mean for what has become known as the pro-choice movement? What's next? Where do you go when the highest court in the land has made such a ruling?
It's tough, and it's a hard blow. Again, there are people out there who have been sounding the alarm for this for a long time. There are organizations out there who are doing great work in regards to this. We just have to we can't just lay down and let this happen. We have to keep, challenging it in best ways that we can. We have to make our voices heard. We need to support these organizations who are doing this type of work. And we just have to keep pushing forward. We can't let this be it.
I imagine many women in Alabama who feel that they're pro-choice are nervous right now because of the law back in 2019 that they are fighting now to take effect here. What are your thoughts on the fight to, the thoughts about the immediacy of that going into effect?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with something like this happening, my generation, millennials and younger, are now generations that have less rights and bodily autonomy than those of our mothers and generations before us. And again, it's just, we have to keep doing the work. We have to keep supporting these organizations that are doing the work, and keep fighting for our rights, because this is a constitutional right. It should be a constitutional right. Another thing people can do is, elections. It's an election year. And you should be, if this is something that you care about, you need to do your research on these candidates that are running for office, whether that's congressionally or in the state legislature, and get behind people and support people who are also pro-choice and supporting those issues.
Lisa Henback, we thank you so much for taking time to come on and talk with us about this issue today. A landmark ruling, whichever side of it you are on, this definitely is a life-changing court case and court opinion, Supreme Court opinion, for people across this country. And thank you so much again.
Thank you. We do want to continue our coverage now with Way 31's Luke Hydash. He's actually been at the Alabama Women's Center in Huntsville for a few hours now. That center does offer abortions here in Huntsville.
All right. So, Luke, you actually have talked to folks on both sides of this issue who are out there right now. What are they saying?
Yeah, emotions are no doubt high on for people on both sides of this issue here, and still just about an 11 o'clock hour, we do have some folks from the Huntsville Clinic Defenders who are out here. The pro-life folks, they just wrapped up their demonstration out on the sidewalk outside the clinic here, and it did not take long for both of these groups to get their folks together and come here to this clinic on Sparkman after that decision was overturned a little bit earlier this morning. Those who are pro-choice this morning saying that this decision is a slap in the face, while others who are pro-life say that today is a day to celebrate. Today is a victorious day for them. But they both agree on one thing here, and that is that for each of them, there is still work to do for their organizations.
I keep fighting. We'll probably try to find ways to help women get out of the state to someplace that is sane and realizes that women are people. We were hoping against hope that today wasn't going to happen, but we've known for 30 years that this day was inevitable.
We are going to keep asking for what we've been asking the whole time, that Alabama pass a law that gives equal protection to the unborn and treats abortion like murder, abolishing it without exception or compromise.
The man you just heard there from End Abortion Alabama, he and his folks were out up on the sidewalk there, just beyond where that green umbrella is. They took off right about when the show started, about 11 o'clock or so, and they said that being here was the best way for them to get their message out. Well, the folks here from the Huntsville Clinic Defenders, they say that they will be here throughout the day, and then they agree as well. Being here is the best thing they can do right now, and spending time together as emotions are very high for people on both sides of this issue. Live in Huntsville right now, Luke Hydash, Way 31 News.
Very high indeed.
Yeah,
As
Luke, we
we've
thank you
said,
for being
this-
out there.
This is not, this is a life-changing decision. People are on both sides of it, and they are very passionate about their positions. And this is not
It's complicated too. When you talk about the league,
So
what's
many
behind
layers.
it, legality,
So
the
many
legality
layers.
of it. And so that's why we want to bring in an expert here, an
Right.
attorney here in Huntsville, Will League, to talk about a little bit more about what exactly this means. We're talking about Dobbs versus Jackson. Explain how this came about, how we even got to this moment where they're going to overturn Roe v. Wade.
Well, welcome to the 50s. As it stands right now, we're under 1950s law in Alabama. You know, Governor Ivey signed the Human Life Protection Act in 2019, banning most abortions with no exception for rape or incest. So significantly strong law against abortion. The only exceptions are if the fetus won't live outside the womb, or there's an issue there, or a significant risk to the mother. But again, no exception for rape or incest. And right now, that law was to go. Well, that law was to go into effect in 2019. Federal Judge Thompson blocked that. Now, what that means right now is once Roe v. Wade was overturned, that law can spring forward once that injunction is lifted from the federal judge, Judge Thompson. But right now, a zombie law is in effect, and the 1950s law. So right now, we're under antiquated law in Alabama, and so yes, their emotions are running high on both sides. Practically, what does that mean? Back in the 50s, for an illegal abortion, you're looking at 6 months in jail and a fine. But once the injunction is lifted, it can be a Class C felony for assisting, a Class A felony for a doctor performing an illegal abortion. I know some of the states, some of the more progressive states, are scrambling to try and assist women who are in, you know, there's 12 or 13 trigger laws that automatically make it illegal. Alabama's not one of them. However, Attorney General says he's going to, in short order, they're going to ask that to be rescinded. And so can you be prosecuted for fleeing the state to get medical care? It's a sad day for many. It's a happy day for some. And I don't think this debate is over by a long shot. The more troubling issue is the Supreme Court justices who, before they got on the court, answered questions from the senators when they were being vetted to go onto the court. You know, there could be a strong argument that they misled those senators. So that's kind of how we progressed to where we are right now, and sadly we're under antiquated 1950s law, but that's going to change soon. So where we go from here, it's going to be interesting.
Well, that's the question I was about to ask you, Will. When the highest court in the land has made this ruling, issued this opinion, what is the recourse? Is there a recourse? Certainly, I would say asking on behalf of the pro-choice side of this issue.
Right. Well, the Supreme Court has really put it back to the states. And again, you know, the states can determine their own abortion laws. Some are going to. Some, like in Alabama, if the injunction is lifted, which it probably will be, then it's going to be illegal, even in cases of rape and incest. Taking it to the states, you know, now it comes down to voters. What legislatures should they put in the House of Representatives, in their state? So each state is going to vote. The legislatures are going to, make the law in each individual states. How that moves forward, it's going to be different in each state. And, women, to get back to your question, someone seeking an abortion who's in trouble, what can she do right now? Right now, it's still legal. But as soon as that injunction is lifted, it's not. Can she go to another state? What are the repercussions in that? Will we see people moving out of states that have banned abortion and vice versa? So it's a slippery slope, and that's the question we asked the father earlier. Someone who has been the victim of rape or incest, and they're not allowed those basic medical decisions. For particular circumstance, it's a very sad day for women's reproductive rights.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We could probably talk to you for a long time about
a lot of questions.
That we have now, but we do have to wrap this up right now.
Yes.
We're going to go to break. Now, President Joe Biden is expected to speak on the landmark ruling in just a little bit. We, of course, will monitor the situation. We'll go to him live once he comes on air. We're on top of this story. And again, we're going to come back in a few minutes with more.
A lot more to come.